We now know our grid isn't reliable. It's wildly expensive. The state has even acknowledged that wind and solar are the most expensive way to decarbonize the state. And now we know Xcel has said they can't even decarbonize at the cost that they had originally agreed upon.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of PowerGab, your go-to show for all things energy and environmental policy. I'm Jake Fogleman, joined as always by my co-host Amy Cooke. And this week, we want to talk about a running theme on this show, I would say, but it is in the news. It's quite newsworthy, unfortunately. We take no pleasure in reporting that this is newsworthy because there have been an increased number of power outages, particularly with Xcel Energy, Colorado's largest monopoly utility. It's the largest electricity provider for most people in the state, about 1.5 million customers. And CBS News just did a big expose about people all across the Denver metro area reporting a massive uptick in the number of power outages they're experiencing. This is a problem we've obviously been warning about. We know that these issues can be a problem, and we expect them to accelerate in the future. I just don't know if we anticipated the future being a couple weeks down the road. Amy, if you want to dive into a little bit about what this report found.
Yeah, this is actually, to your point, I think you said it well. We take no pleasure in this, in sort of reporting on this or talking about this. And then the other word you used was accelerating, and I think that's important to know too, because we began talking about this 14, 15 years ago when House Bill 1365 first passed in the Colorado State Legislature. And that was, for those who, quick history lesson, that was mandated retirement of coal-fired power plants in favor of natural gas and wind and solar. So what we did is we forced the retirement of baseload power, meaning reliable, affordable, on-site storage for the resource. So we retired baseload coal in exchange for intermittent wind and solar, and then on time, meaning utilized as it is brought in natural gas. And the other thing I would point out to Jake that people should remember is that states have an enormous amount of authority over what their generating portfolio is. So the Colorado legislature in 2010 decided that they were going to mandate the closure of coal in favor of, like I said, intermittent wind, solar, and natural gas. And it was called Clean Air, Clean Jobs. And we said at the time that, yes, we agreed Colorado has the authority to do it, but is it the right thing? Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And then we said, here's what's going to happen. Prices will go up and reliability will go down. Well, fast forward 14 years later, and we're seeing prices skyrocket and reliability decreasing. And to your point, I think we know that this is just going to accelerate. It's going to go much faster. There are several neighborhoods within sort of the Denver metro area that are now saying that they are experiencing frequent power outages. Louisville, and they spoke with a woman, Marcy Kalish. I hope I'm saying that right. If I haven't, Marcy, I apologize. Happy Canyon, Applewood, and Sterling Ranch. What is interesting to me is CBS4, which did a good job on the story, asked Marcy, said, the question is, have power outages been a problem for you over the last 20 years? She stated she's been there for 20 years in her house for 20 years. And they asked the question, have power outages been a problem for you over the last 20 years? And she said, no, they have not. She said the quiet part out loud, like, listen, we no longer have reliable power. The power is not reliable in her house in Louisville. She is paying more and getting less for her for electricity. And this is exactly This is exactly what we expected. Exactly. And we are now seeing it come true. Excel also made a number of claims about why. They said load growth, one, failure of equipment, all right. Crew safety issues. I don't even really know what that means. That crew safety, they couldn't fix something. I mean, I'm going to assume that that is true. But here's the thing that really got me: hot days. They said customers running their air conditioning on hot days. To which I said, I'm going to throw the BS flag on that one, because when else are customers supposed to run their air conditioner? On cold days? You run them on hot days. So Excel, on the one hand, says that they have built the system to support, or the infrastructure to support, customers' needs. On the other hand, literally, this was within the same sentence, and I think I didn't write down exactly what it is, but they said, we've built the system, the infrastructure to support customer needs, except when customers run their air conditioners on hot days. I mean, what does this say for heat pumps or for electrification of heating in the winter when we go from a summer peaking system to a winter peaking system? This is not going to end well, Jake. This is just not going to end well.
No, yeah, I think that line stuck out to me as well, because it is sort of a searing indictment. As you pointed out, they list many different factors for different regions and different causes for specific forms of outages. But the fact that they say, well, various factors can impact infrastructure, including customers running AC on hot days. And that's such a searing indictment, because, utility systems, they're built with peak demand in mind. That's why there's reserve margins. That's what their capacities are built for. That's what their infrastructure is built for, is to serve load when it's at its highest, and then everything else should be a piece of cake. Clearly, they're failing in that, if the fact that people happen to be running their AC, go figure, running their AC on hot days, is enough to cause outages all across the state. That's sort of a searing indictment of the utility.
And you know what else, too? People are paying for it. We're paying to have the electricity available when we need it, not tell customers that on a hot day, turn your air conditioner either off or up to 85 degrees. I don't know if you know this. Well, and you may have heard me talk about this last week when Xcel Energy in Amarillo, Texas, had an electricity emergency or a power emergency, and told customers there to turn their air conditioners up to 85 degrees. It's not like that's something they do all the time. It used to be that if customers were using power, the utility wanted you to use it. They were selling more power, right? I mean, but now they're actually using this demand side management. They want to tell you, this demand response, use less on hot days. Why? Because we don't have the infrastructure to support customers using their air conditioner on hot days. Well, why would that be? Because they have spent money investing in highly profitable, and I would say obscenely profitable, wind and solar, which simply cannot in any way, shape, or form power the grid in the state of Colorado or in the little part of Texas that Xcel has. But remember, states have the authority over their generating portfolio, so they can decide what's going to generate the state, or what's going to power the state. So if they want windmills and solar panels to do it, that's because the legislature has said that's what we want, and the governor has signed it. And that's where Colorado is right now. Colorado is in a place where we now know our grid isn't reliable. It's wildly expensive. The state has even acknowledged that wind and solar are the most expensive way to decarbonize the state. And now we know Xcel has said they can't even decarbonize at the cost that they had originally agreed upon $12 billion with the B. We're now up to $61 billion without transmission lines. That's according to the governor's energy office. But you know what else, Jake? Here's the astounding thing. The Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing has even acknowledged the state is not, the power grid is not reliable. So what are they doing? They're offering free battery backups to Medicaid recipients. Think about that. The state has now acknowledged wind and solar are the most expensive, but we're still going there. And then throw in hydrogen, which I'll let you talk about the cost of hydrogen, but they've acknowledged it's too expensive, one. And then two, they've acknowledged you can't power the state reliably. So you know what? We don't want Medicaid patients dying on our watch. So we're going to give them battery backups for their medical devices. We are on the precipice of an epic policy failure, a colossal policy failure. And no one at the state legislature or in the governor's mansion is trying to stop it.
Yeah, that detail about the Medicare recipients being offered battery backup because there's some uncertainty about how reliable the grid is. It speaks to the human cost of this, right? Yeah, and then some of the folks profiled in the CBS piece talk about the anxiety that this induces when you don't know, is my power going to turn on? What's my backup plan? What can I do if I don't have my essentials being able to run at any given moment? And let alone someone on Medicare that maybe has medical devices that they need to live that are reliant on a power grid. So this stuff matters. This stuff is life and death. There's a reason we harp on this stuff so much. It's not just because we like to be, the mean people on the side of the room saying you're doing something wrong. No, this is literally a matter of life and death. People's lives are at stake, and reliable power is one of those things that we sometimes take for granted in a modern society, but we absolutely shouldn't. And it's clear that these folks are no longer taking that for granted because they're living with this day to day.
Can I add one thing? The existential threat to public health is not climate change. The existential threat to public health in the state of Colorado right now is the Colorado legislature and the governor of the state of Colorado with their policies on how they are going to power the state. Like I said, we're on the precipice of an epic, absolutely epic policy failure, and people's lives are at stake. That's the existential threat to public health. It isn't climate change. The existential threat to public health in Colorado is the state legislature and the governor, who are trying to power a state of nearly 6 million people using intermittent, unreliable, doomed to fail windmills and solar panels. Oh, but they're nice enough if you need life-saving equipment that they'll give you a battery backup, thanks to taxpayers from the federal level.
No, I think that's well said.
I
think it's well said. And I think, going that route with, as XL CEO, they quote Robert Kenney talking about load growth. Colorado hasn't seen anything like the load growth that a lot of other states, especially the big data center states like Virginia, for instance. So we ain't seen nothing yet. Colorado hasn't really caught up to those states at this point, and the fact that we're already having these problems suggests that the next 10, 20, however long this runway ends up lasting, are going to be potentially hit or miss unless there's some policy course corrections going on.
And the other one, Jake, and I mentioned this earlier, and I'll let you talk about this. So what is the answer? What is their solution? They know that wind, solar, and batteries can't do it, so they're going to give away free batteries to people who need it for medical devices. But what is their other solution? Hydrogen. And we've talked about this. We've actually done a whole show on this.
Yep.
Go ahead. I'll let you. I mean, I can't believe this is where we are, but go ahead.
Yeah, we're essentially banking on a very theoretical and inefficient and costly. How many adjectives can I list about relying on this as a strategy? No, you're talking about, again, double-digit billions trying to make this a reality. It's heavily subsidized by the federal government, and I believe the state actually has a tax credit for it as well, of course. Hoping that hydrogen becomes the silver bullet that saves our rear ends when the rubber meets the road, and we go down this path and we retire all of our base load. We rely mostly on wind and solar. And they want green hydrogen, something that's not really employed anywhere at scale at the moment, to be our saving grace. And I don't know about you, Amy. I'm not counting on that to be the case.
No one should. You know what people are going to start doing? They're going to start chopping up their furniture and burning it in a fireplace or burning it. I guarantee you carbon emissions will go up when we have rolling blackouts in the winter. Why? Because we're not using natural gas, because we've we've totally electrified the home heating, our home heating, and it isn't going to be efficient or effective. We have rolling blackouts. People are going to burn whatever they can find to keep their homes warm, whether it's furniture or cutting down trees outside or whatever it is. I guarantee you our carbon emissions will go up. And that's why this policy is doomed for failure. It's not going to reduce emissions. And in fact, Utah is more likely to reduce emissions well ahead of Colorado, but emissions will go up. Our quality of life will go down. We'll spend more, and our reliability will be less. This is not going to end well. We're going to see more of what happened in Louisville, Happy Canyon, Applewood, and Sterling Ranch coming soon to a neighborhood near you. I guess that would be my, be prepared. Be prepared. This is coming.
Yeah. No, and just one more thing I want to hit before we kind of wrap up here on this is you touched on a little bit. We're going to spend more for sure. One of the people they profiled in this piece cited the fact that Xcel is making billions of dollars, and yet they can't even reliably meet load, and we haven't even reached the real crux of when demand is going to be a true problem under these scenarios. And beyond even the generation side, trying to build windmills and solar panels and hydrogen maybe. There's the transmission and distribution side too. We've talked about the Fenberg rider, the transmission lines needed to facilitate these programs. Upgrades to the grid, wildfire risks were cited as one of the reasons for some of these outages. Well, one of the solutions for wildfire risks is undergrounding power lines, and that's very, very expensive. So no matter what, expect to see huge dollar signs. Bills are going to continue to go up, and it may or may not be for reliable power in the end.
I want to throw out one more thing too, just for listeners to think about, because I get asked this all the time. What can we do? And I say, vote different. Get a generator. I tell everybody that, but vote different. By the way, ask legislative candidates. Heck, ask your city council people. Ask your school boards. Where do they stand on reliable power? Where do they support reliable power? And if they don't, no one's getting my vote if they don't support reliable power. And by the way, you can do it with carbon-free with nuclear, but Colorado is openly hostile to it. So vote different is number one. And number two, I would say this: Colorado ought to consider a ballot measure that prioritizes reliable, affordable power. Put the people of Colorado first. Prioritize reliable, affordable power over this sort of vague, nebulous threat of emissions. I would put reliable and affordable power make those be priorities in the state of Colorado. But you're not going to get it through the legislature. You're not going to get it with the governor. So it's going to have to be a ballot measure.
Yeah, nope, those are excellent points. Did you want to add any other takeaways? Those seem like pretty good takeaways to leave it off of. But
so here are my takeaways. Yeah, one, we're in the midst of. We're not going to say in the midst. We're at the start of a massive policy failure, and we're the ones who are going to suffer through it. Max Tyler is long gone. Bill Ritter is long gone, and chances are Polis will be out before the worst of it hits. But we are at the start of a massive policy failure that we're all gonna pay the price for. And then Colorado should consider a ballot measure to course correct this policy because it's not going to happen through the legislature and it's not going to happen through the governor. So my suggestion is if we want to change the policy, if we want to change the trajectory, do a ballot measure to course correct and then take care of your own. As I always say, get a generator. In this case, get a couple of them.
Evergreen advice every time. But that does it for us for another episode of PowerGab. If you like what you heard here, you can head on over to iitv.org to see our entire back catalog. We release new episodes every single week. You can also reach out to us and interact with us if you want to suggest future show topics or guests, anything you'd like us to discuss. Just send that over to info@powergab.org. If you prefer the audio version of PowerGab, you can find that anywhere you get your podcasts, whether that's Spotify or Apple Podcasts. But until next time, we'll see you.